Today, we expose the highway robbery that's been happening to the American public for decades as Elon Musk and Donald Trump are pulling the sheets back and seeing who's behind the curtain of this insane amount of government spending and tax dollar robbery that's been happening to the average American person, and what to expect over the next few years as the markets and economy realize that Trump means business. But before we get into all of this crazy news, make sure you smash the like and hit the subscribe button for the Blockchain Basement to stay up to date with all of our latest and greatest. And thankfully, it looks like liberals have found a way to defeat the Nazi Elon Musk by painting swastikas all over vehicles in downtown city centers and burning businesses that belong to immigrants. That's fantastic. They've really got everything figured out as they solve humanity's biggest ailments. Now, what we see happening on the fiscal side for the federal government is absolutely crazy right now. We have Doge getting ready to sell billions of dollars in empty federal buildings that Trump plans to auction off a total of 80 million square feet of federal offices. Absolutely crazy. This is more than all of the office space in Boston, including 1/5 of all office space in Washington, D.C., according to this from Wall Street Maverick. With Doge incoming, this is the tip of the iceberg. The federal government owns 263,000 properties at 27% of the land in America. Yes, you read that right. They own 27% of all land in America. And this together adds up to right about $2 trillion worth of value just sitting there right before the taking. And with this shuffle of what federal land is being used for, we saw this just break from the Gold Telegraph, highlighting the United States is now aiming to build metal refineries and facilities at Pentagon military bases as part of a plan from Trump to boost domestic production of critical minerals. This is the West waking up. This is the West actually becoming competitive with China once again. And as Xi Jinping and Macron and, of course, Trudeau up north realize we ain't playing around, we got the new incumbent from Canada wanting to strike up a deal, folks. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney ready to meet U.S. President Trump to discuss ending the tariff war before it really began. Man, that was a quick war. Now, this Mark Carney guy, I've been asking a lot of viewers in the basement that are actually from Canada where the hell this guy actually came from. Looks like he didn't even win a general election. In fact, in order to become the Prime Minister on March 9th of 2025, he won the Liberal Party leadership race with a landslide victory where he secured 86% of the vote from party members, approximately 131,000 votes out of just over 152,000 total cast. This was an internal party vote, not a general public election. They positioned him to succeed Justin Trudeau as the leader of the Liberal Party and consequently as Canada's Prime Minister once Trudeau formally resigns, which is expected to happen over the next few days here. According to multiple reports, a general election must occur by October 20th of 2025, but Carney could call one sooner, or opposition parties could force one through a no confidence vote when Parliament resumes on March 24th of this year. They might actually force that election to the table here because we see reports like this from Table Salt breaking. The government of Canada announced $272 million sent to Bangladesh to fill in for the U.S. aid gap that's sitting now that Elon Musk has been doing all his gutting. Intersectional democratic spaces of Bangladesh, gender responsive and inclusive education, and community resilience through locally led inclusive adaptation. Whatever the hell any of that means, I don't understand why Canada needs to be funneling a bunch of money to Bangladesh. And I don't think their people that are getting beat down by inflationary pressures appreciate hundreds of millions of dollars of their tax money going across seas either. Just a thought. But of course, here in the United States, I covered it on the Basement Show today. This is so insane what we've been spending our money on. $620,000 for an LGBT plus inclusive teen pregnancy prevention program for transgender boys. We also made sure that there was $50,000 for assessing sexual health among LGBTQ plus Latinx youth in agricultural communities, and $740,000 for examining social networks among Black and Latino sexual minority men in New Jersey. Oddly specific, but all right. You're fired.
You are banned!
Now, here's the general thesis, is how these NGOs and USAID have been funneling our money out of our hands. We are taxed. Taxes go to USAID. Leftists create some NGO. The NGO is funded by USAID. Leftists in the NGO do zero real work, and then the NGO pays leftists huge salaries. Leftists donate salaries from NGOs to Democrats, and it's why Democrats are freaking out over Trump and Elon killing their money laundering scheme, which has been USAID. Very, very simple combination there. And boy, howdy, am I happy to see this end. Another thing that I'm very happy to see end is the over-gluttoned, and another thing that I'm happy to see come to a conclusion is the control of the federal government of our educational systems here. We have the Department of Education workforce has been cut in half. Started the year with 4,133 workers. 1,315 were fired, 572 accepted separation packages, and 63 probationary workers were terminated last month. Oh, we're halfway there. Now, check this out. The debt clock is starting to look pretty good. We have Doge clock coming in, and so far the Department of Government Efficiency has cut away $192 billion of useless spending that the United States has been doing with my tax dollars, and I'm here for it. And it looks like something is working on this end in terms of bringing down inflation. We do have CPI data coming in lower than expectations today, and many people think that this will actually keep falling as the Department of Government Efficiency keeps cutting away these overbloated systems. And this is how you know things are getting crazy. Even CNN is having to admit that things are looking a lot better.
Finally, we have some good news on the economy and really the number one issue for many Americans, the cost of living. So we just learned that consumer prices in February increased by 2.8% year over year, 0.2% month over month. Both of these figures were a step in the right direction, and both were better than expected. So this is definitely very encouraging to see, because it's going to, I think, relieve some fears that inflation was perhaps reaccelerating, because this actually breaks a streak of 4 straight months where I think you could see it on the chart all the way to the right, where the inflation rate was going in the wrong direction, right? It was going higher and higher. Finally, we're seeing it dip.
Very interesting to see them admit that something is going decently well in terms of inflation numbers. CNN, historically, very much against Trump. So very interesting to see that report come out of them this morning. And also, I want to give a highlight to where we are in terms of inflation today versus the stagflationary explosion that happened from the 1970s to 1980s. Here we are, inflation today versus the 1970s. Now, as we've seen, inflation was slightly ticking up, but this recent print of lower inflation, bringing it back down. In general, this pattern has the same structure of that stagflationary event, but I think that what we're experiencing right now is going to be a little bit / a lot of bit muted from what we saw in terms of inflation and CPI data of 1970 to 1980. And if history does rhyme / repeat, then we see these inflation levels reach at their pico top somewhere around the 6 to 7% level, and not the 15 to 16% level that brought home mortgages up to that 18% range. That absolutely would crush the middle and lower class right now, who are barely even able to enter into mortgages as things sit. So looking at this graph, I feel that we're going to see a little bit of a haircut on this, and actually kind of a flatline moment like we see just under this is where we are now. On the blue line, you can see that there was a moment where there's a plateau there. I think that that's likely going to be a repeating pattern for this current situation that we're in within this circle here in black. And what I'm going to be doing is taking advantage of as much buying power as I can, hammering into good real estate. But it is important to note some key metrics that happen during stagflationary events. Let's take a look here. While stagflationary scenario would be highly detrimental to the overall US economy, precious metals and mining stocks would benefit significantly, much like the 1970s when gold emerged as one of the top performing assets, vastly outperforming equities and bonds. And what do we see BlackRock and larger market makers talking about? Bitcoin being digital gold, and Trump wanting Bitcoin to be made in America. This is the technological tea party that we're talking about here, where the United States is going to be leaning into making sure that they have a large amount of hash power in the Bitcoin network, and that our reserves are bolstered now with Bitcoin as an additional asset. This is a great time in the collapse up as I'm investing into some of the best projects in crypto. You all know what those are on the blockchain basement, but Bitcoin has never been a better bet in my opinion. opinion. As I see all these pressures coming to the macroeconomic environment, these powers that be will pull levers, they'll pull strings, and they'll keep the can kicked down the road. And I think what we're seeing right now is the backing of the US dollar to continue the borrowing and the bonds game that the United States traditionally plays anyway. So with this information, do your own research, make your own decisions for yourself. But whatever you do, keep your crypto off of exchanges. Make sure to use the code BASE10, link in our description for 10% off your cold storage. Become your own bank. Don't trust banks to hold on to your assets for you. And I'll see you on the other side.